All right, so we're in the home stretch here, guys. My brisket did hit 190 already, so I like to pull it out about 190, 195 the most. Why do you pull it out at that temperature? One, it is getting to a point where if it goes any higher or above 202, the juices inside the brisket will actually evaporate, right? So at this point, you want to pull out your brisket once it hits to 190, 195. You want to wrap it and let it rest for a couple of hours, for 2 hours. So what I like to do during this time is I actually like to get a towel, wrap my brisket up in a towel, and because this is butcher paper, you are going to have a lot more of the juices coming out. So as you can see, there's already some of the juices coming out there. So you want to wrap this up in a towel. You want to get yourself a cooler, a nice cooler that's going to be big enough to be able to accommodate the brisket. You want to insert it into the cooler and let it sit for a couple of hours. This will allow the brisket to rest. It will allow the brisket to absorb some of the juices back into it, and it'll become a little bit more tender. I will see you guys in a little bit once I'm ready to cut this brisket. Right, so we're at the final step here, guys. My brisket has been resting for a couple of hours in the cooler. Now we're gonna do the great reveal, right? So I'm gonna unwrap the brisket. I'm gonna take you through the steps on the techniques on how cutting it in order for you to get the most tender type of brisket that you can. I'll take it off of the paper towel. I mean, not the paper towel, the towel itself. All right, let's see what this thing looks like. Once again, this is unwrapping and cutting a Texas Crutch method of smoking a brisket. As you can see, it looks very juicy. Okay, you can get rid of that. All right, here we go. I'm trying to get this off of the paper. It smells really good. And there you have a thing of beauty. Now remember what we talked about. After you're good with the bark that you want on your brisket, this is when you want to wrap it the Texas Crutch style, so that you can stop creating too much of a bark, but at the same time keep all the juices in. So the method to cut in cutting a brisket, you got to remember that a brisket is 2 pieces of meat or 2 pieces of muscles. There's one going on the bottom, one going on top. It's overlaying itself. So the rule of thumb whenever you're cutting meat is you always want to go against the grain. But the problem is that this part of the brisket, the grain is going this way. The bottom part of the brisket, the grain is going to be going the other way. So you have to do one of 2 things. You want to divide and conquer, or you want to cut it down the middle and divide it that way. What I mean by divide and conquer is you can start at the edge going against the grain until you start noticing there's the meat kind of starts changing the grain a little bit, and then you can cut that part off and cut it the other way. So right now what we're going to do is we're finding the grain goes this way, so I'm actually going to cut against the grain. So let's see what this brisket looks like after doing it the Texas Crutch style smoking. So far so good. The knife is having no problems cutting through the meat. And this is the flat end, which means this should be the more drier part. If anything, whenever you look for brisket, there's two parts to it. There's a moist and a lean. This would be the lean part, and it is a sizable cut right here. And if you notice, hardly ever any problems pulling that. So now the next thing would be to do the taste test. That is some good, soft, tender brisket, and on top of that, this is a lean part. Oh my goodness, this is good. So I'm going to continue cutting this brisket against the grain. At least until you guys get to see the part that I'm talking about. Where the meat kind of folds up against itself. And then here's where you want to do the bend test. Bend test basically means if your brisket bends, where am I at? That's a good indicator of how tender and soft your brisket is. You can even see the smoke coming out. Look at that bend test. We try to do another pull test here. I mean, there's really almost no effort. So yes, doing it Texas crutch style, it is really good. A really good method of cooking your brisket. You just need to be very patient. It is low and slow. You don't want to try to cook a brisket in like 6 or 7 hours, because that stall that the brisket does around 140, 150, that's when you actually know the brisket is actually tenderizing itself by cooking in its own juices. If you rush that part or that time, you can tell at the end with the end product. So I mean, as you can see, the very bottom here, there's a lot of juices coming out. And then we start to come, and this is why I wanted to continue cutting with the camera rolling, because I wanted to show you what I meant by the grains actually starting to change. So I already started noticing here, but I'm gonna give it one more slice to show you guys. So at this point, this top part of the meat is all the lean part. The bottom part is the moist part. So because the brisket folds onto itself, you're gonna start to notice that at some point the actual grain starts to change from going up and down to going sideways. When you see this going sideways, this part of the brisket, you need to be cutting it the other way. Okay, so that's what I'm telling you. You need to make sure that you understand that that's what's going on. All you really have to do here is you can divide it by picking it up here and just kind of giving, see, it's very tender, very tender. And it's not an exact science, because if you notice, there's still a lot of the moist part here. Look, I can just kind of, with the opposite side of the blade, and it's still cut. Okay, so you can take this part off. This is the actual moist part. This one, you have to cut it the other way. Notice how the fibers are going this way. On this part of the brisket, you have to cut against. All right, but that's how you do it. Oh, look at that, look at that. Look at all that. I don't know if you can see all that water coming out. Oh, I hope you can see that. It is really good. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. If you have any questions, please leave them down. But honestly, guys, if you do it this way, the method that I showed you, you will be very happy with the way your brisket comes out. Once again, thank you for watching. This has been the Smoking Beard, bringing you another edition of how to smoke brisket at home. Thank you, guys.